Starting January 20th, millions of Americans are set to receive a new Social Security payment amount of up to $2,071. And if you're on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI, you need to know exactly who qualifies, why this amount is changing, and whether your account is on the list. Because missing one detail could mean missing out on money you're entitled to. This isn't just another vague update. This is a real payment figure tied to real eligibility rules, real timing, and real changes happening right now. Some beneficiaries will see higher deposits, others may be confused by what arrives in their bank account, and many people won't even realize why their payment changed unless they understand the system behind it. In this video, we're breaking down everything in simple, clear terms. Who is eligible for the $2,071 amount? What the January 20th payment date really means? How recent adjustments and benefit calculations affect your monthly check? And what you should check immediately to make sure your payment is correct. If you rely on these benefits, this is not information you can afford to guess about. A few minutes of clarity here could protect your income for the entire year. Make sure you support this update by hitting the like button right now so more people who need this information can see it. Now, let's slow down for a moment and really talk about what this number means, because when you hear a figure like $2,071, it can sound exciting, confusing, or even misleading depending on how it's presented. A lot of channels throw out big numbers to get attention, but what matters here is understanding where that amount comes from, who can realistically expect to see something close to it, and what's actually changing in January that could affect your deposit. Because the truth is, Social Security doesn't operate on headlines. It operates on formulas, work histories, earnings records, and eligibility categories. And if you don't understand those mechanics, you can easily misinterpret what's happening with your own benefits. The $2,071 figure is tied to updated benefit calculations taking effect with the new payment cycle beginning in mid to late January. That amount reflects a higher-end monthly benefit for certain eligible recipients, not a universal flat payment for everyone. And that distinction is critical. For some people, especially those who worked long careers with consistent earnings, this number might be very close to their actual payment. For others, it may represent a partial increase, or it may not apply at all depending on their benefit type. That's why this conversation matters. Because when deposits start hitting accounts on January 20th, a lot of people are going to log into their bank apps and feel either excited, confused, or concerned depending on what they see. There are people who will open their account that morning and notice an increase compared to December. There will also be people who see no change and wonder if something went wrong. And there will be people who see a different amount than expected and worry that their benefits were reduced. That emotional roller coaster happens every single year when adjustments take effect, and it happens largely because the system isn't explained clearly enough. Not by the SSA, not by the mail notices, and not by the automated phone systems that leave you on hold for hours. That's why understanding the mechanics before the payment arrives is so important. What's happening behind the scenes is a recalibration of benefit amounts based on updated eligibility factors, annual adjustments, and how individual benefit profiles interact with the broader payment structure. Your payment is not just a number the government picks randomly. It's the result of your earnings history, when you claimed benefits, what type of benefit you receive, and whether any deductions or offsets apply to your situation. That means two people receiving Social Security can be in completely different financial realities, even though they're part of the same system. When you hear that payments up to $2,071 are arriving, that phrase "up to" carries a lot of weight. It means the amount represents the higher threshold for a specific category of recipients. Typically, this applies to individuals who had strong earnings histories, claimed benefits at a strategic age, and meet certain eligibility criteria that maximize their benefit. That doesn't mean the system is unfair, it simply reflects how Social Security was designed. The system rewards longer work histories and higher contributions over time. But what complicates things is that many people don't realize how their own personal choices over the years shaped the amount they're receiving now. There are individuals who claimed early because they needed the income, not because it was the optimal financial decision. There are people who had gaps in employment due to caregiving responsibilities, health issues, or economic hardship. There are people who work jobs that paid under the table or weren't covered by Social Security taxes. All of these factors show up in the final benefit calculation. So when you see news about higher payment amounts, it's not a guarantee for everyone. It's an indicator of how high benefits can go under the current structure. Another layer of complexity is the payment schedule itself. Social Security deposits do not arrive on the same day for everyone. Your payment date depends on your birth date and the type of benefit you receive. Some recipients get paid earlier in the month, while others receive their deposit later. The January 20th date is significant for a large segment of beneficiaries, particularly those whose payment schedule aligns with later month deposits. That's why you'll see a surge of attention around this date. It's when a major wave of payments hits bank accounts across the country. And when that happens, the conversations begin. People talk to neighbors, family members, friends at church, co-workers, and suddenly comparisons start happening. I got this much. How much did you get? That's when confusion often sets in, because two people who believe they are in similar situations can see very different numbers in their accounts. Without understanding the structure, it can feel arbitrary, but it isn't. It's based on individual benefit records that stretch back decades. What makes this moment particularly important is that we're not just talking about a routine deposit. We're talking about a shift in amounts that could affect monthly budgeting, rent planning, grocery spending, medical expenses, and overall financial stability for millions of people. For someone living on a fixed income, even a modest increase can be meaningful. It can be the difference between being able to fill a prescription or having to delay it. It can mean covering utilities without anxiety. It can mean breathing a little easier at the end of the month. At the same time, it's also a moment when people are vulnerable to misinformation. Whenever benefit changes happen, scams increase. There are fraudulent emails, fake phone calls, spoofed messages, and misleading social media posts designed to exploit confusion. People receive messages claiming they need to confirm their eligibility, or verify their deposit, or unlock their increased payment. These are red flags. The SSA does not contact beneficiaries this way. They don't ask for your banking login, they don't ask for gift cards, and they don't threaten to suspend your benefits over a phone call. But every year, people fall victim to these scams because they're already uncertain about what's happening with their benefits. That's why clarity matters so much here. When you understand what's supposed to happen, you're much less likely to be manipulated. If you know your payment schedule, if you understand your benefit category, if you're familiar with your typical deposit amount and how it might change, you're in control. Without that knowledge, everything feels unpredictable, and that's when anxiety and vulnerability creep in. Another aspect people often overlook is how other income sources interact with Social Security. For some recipients, particularly those receiving SSI, SSDI, or certain needs-based benefits, additional income can affect payment amounts. That includes part-time work, spousal income in some cases, pensions, and other sources. So when new amounts begin rolling out, the effect may not be identical for everyone. Some people may see an increase, while others might see adjustments based on updated income reporting. That doesn't mean anyone did anything wrong. It simply reflects how the system adjusts to individual circumstances. This is especially important for people who have recently experienced life changes. If you moved, if your household size changed, if your income changed, if your medical situation changed, or if your eligibility category shifted, those factors can influence how your payment is calculated. January tends to be a time when these adjustments become more visible because of annual updates and recalculations. So it's not just about a number hitting your account. It's about understanding the broader context of why that number is what it is. There's also a psychological side to this that often goes unspoken. For many people, Social Security isn't just a deposit. It's security in the truest sense of the word. It represents independence. It represents dignity. It represents the ability to live without feeling like a burden on others. That's why changes to benefit amounts carry such emotional weight. When payments increase, there's relief. When they don't, there's disappointment. When they decrease unexpectedly, there's fear. Those emotions are real and they deserve to be acknowledged. What's encouraging is that more people are starting to pay attention to how the system works, instead of just passively receiving whatever shows up in their accounts. People are asking smarter questions. They're logging into their SSA accounts more often. They're reviewing their benefit letters instead of tossing them aside. They're educating themselves. And that shift is powerful, because the more informed you are, the more empowered you become. You start to recognize patterns. You start to notice discrepancies. You start to understand what's normal and what's not. That awareness can make a tangible difference. People who understand their benefits are more likely to catch errors, more likely to respond appropriately to notices, and more likely to seek clarification when something doesn't look right. And mistakes do happen in large systems. That's not a conspiracy, it's just reality. Millions of records, countless variables, decades of data. Errors can occur, but the people who stay informed are the ones most likely to spot and resolve those issues. As January 20th approaches, what matters most is not just whether your deposit changes, but whether you feel prepared when it arrives. Prepared means knowing your usual payment amount. Prepared means understanding your payment schedule. Prepared means recognizing legitimate SSA communication versus scams. Prepared means knowing that not everyone receives the same amount and that differences don't automatically indicate a problem. Prepared means staying calm and informed rather than reacting out of fear or confusion. There are people who will wake up on January 20th and immediately check their accounts. That moment can be emotional. For some, it will bring relief. For others, questions. And for some, concern. But the key difference between stress and confidence is knowledge. When you understand the system, you don't panic when things change. You evaluate, you observe, you verify. And that mindset protects you not only financially, but mentally as well. It's also important to remember that Social Security adjustments are not one-time events. They are part of an ongoing system that evolves with economic conditions, policy decisions, and demographic shifts. The number you receive this year is not necessarily the number you'll receive next year. That's why staying engaged with updates is not optional anymore. It's necessary. The world is changing too quickly, and the financial landscape is too fragile for anyone relying on fixed income to stay uninformed. People often say, "I don't like thinking about this stuff. It's too complicated," and that's understandable. The system is complex by design, but complexity doesn't make it optional. It makes it more important. Ignoring how your benefits work doesn't simplify your life. It just leaves you vulnerable to confusion and misinformation. The people who take the time to understand their benefits are the ones who navigate the system with confidence instead of fear. What makes this moment particularly powerful is that millions of people are paying attention at the same time. When large-scale payment updates happen, awareness spreads quickly. Conversations happen in households across the country. People compare experiences. They share information. They ask questions. That collective attention creates an opportunity for clarity to spread just as fast as confusion. And that's why it's so important that accurate, grounded, realistic explanations exist in the middle of all the noise. Because the truth is, Social Security is neither as mysterious as some people claim nor as simple as others pretend. It's a structured system with rules, patterns, and logic. You don't need to be an economist to understand it. You just need clear explanations, patience, and the willingness to stay engaged with your own financial reality. And once you start understanding it, things that once felt unpredictable begin to make sense. As January payments roll out, you'll likely see more headlines, more posts, more videos, and more opinions. Some will be helpful, some will be misleading, some will exaggerate, some will oversimplify. The challenge for every beneficiary is learning how to filter signal from noise. The most reliable information is always grounded in how the system actually works, not just how dramatic a headline sounds. That's why this moment matters. Because when your deposit arrives, the real question isn't just, "How much did I get?" The real question is, "Do I understand why I got this amount?" And when you can answer that question confidently, you're no longer at the mercy of rumors, speculation, or fear. You're informed, you're aware, and you're in control of your understanding of your own benefits. And when you really step back and look at everything we've talked about, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Understanding your benefits is no longer optional. It's essential. Too many people have spent years assuming that whatever shows up in their bank account is simply what it is, without ever realizing how much influence their work history, timing, eligibility, and awareness actually have on that number. But now, more than ever, information is power. The people who take the time to understand how Social Security works are the people who protect themselves from confusion, from scams, from unnecessary fear, and from costly mistakes. This isn't about panic. It's about preparation. It's about knowing what to expect when your payment arrives. It's about recognizing when something looks right and when something needs attention. It's about feeling confident instead of anxious every time a deposit hits your account. And it's about realizing that you deserve to understand the system you've paid into and relied on for years. No one should feel lost when it comes to their own income. If there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's that staying informed is the strongest form of financial protection you have. The more you understand, the less control confusion has over you. The more you pay attention, the harder it becomes for misinformation to mislead you. And the more engaged you remain, the better positioned you are to protect your stability, your independence, and your peace of mind. That's why conversations like this matter. That's why awareness matters. And that's why continuing to learn about your benefits, instead of ignoring them, can make a real difference in your life.